Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the WRC podcast. I'm so happy to have you all here today. And today I have a really amazing guest who is going to introduce herself in just a minute. But before we get started, I can't wait to share with all of you that I have opened up my Confident Counselor program. So if this is something that is of interest to you, I invite each and every one of you to sign up or fill out the application below, because this program is something that's going to help elevate you and become the best possible counselor that you can possibly be, especially in the international school market. Now, without further ado, I want to jump into today's guest. Her name is Destiny Prey, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But the reason why I invited this particular individual is because I think many of you could possibly relate, especially my listeners who are maybe in the US specifically, because Destiny found me not too long ago when she was living in the US and has recently made a leap into the international school world. And I cannot wait to have you guys listen to her story and share her transformation in the last couple months. So without further ado, Destiny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Katrina. Thank you for that amazing intro. Yes, so my name is Destiny Prey, and I'll give you the quick background. I'm currently located at Rabat American School in Rabat, Morocco. But what brought me here is I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Many people are surprised to hear that. And I think, like most school counselors, social workers, and the helping profession, I had a lot of personal experience in my childhood with a lot of the issues that we work with our students on, right? I was first generation. I was the first in my family to leave and go to college. And so that took me to North Carolina. I knew I wanted to leave Alabama and go out of state and have a new, different experience. So I attended Elon University in undergrad. And part of what drew me to Elon was the fact that almost all of the students studied abroad. So I had the opportunity there to study abroad in Sevilla, in Spain. And that is where I met my now husband, Eunice. And so that kind of launched me into dabbling my toes into what an international kind of lifestyle could look like. I lived there for 2 years after graduating from college. Did a program, in case you're wondering, in case you're like in school, like how do I go international from college? There's so many programs out there. I looked at all of them from Fulbright to I did a teaching and language culture assistant program in Spain, auxiliares de conversación. And I know we'll get into some like advice and tips, but adding your resume and getting some international experience in different ways before making the leap to international school has definitely helped me. From there, I moved back. I went to UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina and got my master's in social work. So not fully traditional in school counseling. My background is in social work. And we lived in Boston for the past 5 years. So I worked in a phenomenal charter school system, completely different student population as a college and career counselor. But I think, I was in year 5. My entire husband's family is in Morocco, and we had been visiting in the summers, and the pandemic had happened. And I was reaching the point of feeling burnout. And it was just a right place, right time. So I had never heard of search associates or any of the kind of traditional ways that people get into the international schools field. I just knew this school because I know the city of Rabat, and I applied kind of untraditionally, PDF on LinkedIn, and got the posting in February before coming this school year.
Amazing. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that transition, maybe from social work to becoming a college and careers counselor?
Yes, so I believe that I was specifically hired in launching my career because we have been seeing in this field of counseling an uptick, the mental health concerns, substance use concerns, higher populations of students with learning differences. And so that was my caseload. Those were the students that I was working with through their college and university process, but really specializing and thinking about non-college post-secondary pathways is what I was working on. So I know this podcast talks about transferable skills and building on your different skills, which is one of the many other ways that it's helped me. And I think thinking about breadth over depth and skills, actually, sometimes knowing how to market. I have these understandings of different populations within social work and how that translates into not just the specific school counseling world, but also really helped me to understand to motivate motivational interviewing those students that might not know necessarily what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
That's so well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, could you share a little bit more about what your transition was like? I'm feeling so curious because it's been a long time, Destiny, since I made that move 11 years ago. So, you recently made the move, I'm guessing, last summer. So, when we're recording, this is now April 2024. I'm guessing you moved last summer, 2023. What was that transition like, moving from the US to Morocco, specifically Rabat, and like what were some of your learning curves, both positive and negative?
So I actually moved all by myself. I didn't move with my husband. He needed to stay back in Boston. We packed up our entire apartment, sold everything we own, and decided to not do the container shipping process. That process I get a lot of questions about that. It is very expensive, depending on what you own. So it was a true kind of end that chapter. I have boxes and friends' homes still now. And so I moved in August, one-way flight. And I'm privileged in the fact that I have his family here. So I was able to come with support, but I had never lived with the in-laws before. And so our school, as most international schools, provide housing. I had that option to live in school housing right from the beginning. But as I said, I was by myself. And if you know anything about Morocco, the thought of living on your own as an individual foreign woman is frowned upon. So the first 2 months, August and September, I lived with my in-laws. And then when my husband was able to join me in October, we moved into school provided housing. And so on a personal level, transitioning to Morocco, the weather from compared to Boston has been a highlight. And living near family, we live right on the beach. So that's been fantastic to just have that view every morning and a short commute in. Or I'm also getting used to having someone to support with cleaning the house and cooking for us if and when we need it. Those like international lifestyle luxuries that people don't really talk about. And also, I think the work-life balance is another big question I get all the time. And work-life balance was an assumption I had going into this role of just you're living abroad and therefore it exists. It's better, quote unquote, than the US or the UK or Canada, which I have to say that has been my experience, and I can share some examples of that. And also, it takes work. You can fall back into your same habits of taking your computer home or overworking that exists in the US anywhere you are, right? Wherever you go, there you are. So our school has a staff well-being program. It's when one person, one of the first days on the job said, this is like a work hard, play hard kind of population or vibe. And I have found that to be true. So I do yoga twice a week right after school with a group of teachers, and there's always something happening. So that has been, as far as transitioning into what it means to be an international school. Your social life is your work life, and your work life is your social life. That has been a positive.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's almost like your work colleagues, especially if you're brand new, you don't know anybody. You have your in-laws, which is like a huge advantage. A lot of people don't have that, but when you don't have anybody, like I had nobody here in Dubai, your work colleagues become your friends. And like you said, it's kind of that delicate balance of how much is too much, and how do you differentiate that? But you said that very beautifully. Like you do have something that you can choose to attend, and then there's some things that you're kind of like, no, I'm good. Like it's all good. So could you tell me a little bit about maybe some of the challenges that you did face when you moved here?
Yeah, and so a lot of the positives are kind of on a personal level, but professionally, I think, I had these preconceived notions of what it means to be an international school because you see the white walls with the Olympic-sized swimming pools and kind of typically a more affluent population, and the same challenges and students that I found working with a lower socioeconomic status population in Boston have been true here as well. The mental health needs are great. And in a place like Morocco, the stigma around what it means to be a school counselor, what it means to seek out therapeutic services, the laws behind child safeguarding, all of it has been a learning curve and a challenge in my position. I'll also say something typical of international schools is that you wear multiple hats. So in my case, I am the only secondary counselor. I have grades 6 through 12. So it's about 260 students, and it's comprehensive. So I do both the social emotional and university counseling, which has been a transition for me doing both. But I don't have, to think about transferable skills, as much experience with middle school. So that in and of itself has been a learning curve, right? The 6th to 8th graders and all of the peer conflict and adolescent development that comes with that could be a job in and of itself. So I think balancing the maybe like lack of support coming in new at times, while you're also personally transitioning into a culture shock place where you don't speak the language, where you're trying to make new friends, we still haven't bought a car, all of those life things at the same time has been a challenge.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. It's always the first probably year and a half where you're kind of still moving it. Like you're still settling, you're still finding your bearings and all of that. But it sounds like you are managing really, really well. Like I'm so blown away. So you may have already kind of touched on this, but I want to ask you, what has surprised you as you navigate working overseas, specifically as a counselor? Like, has there anything that's been like, wow, like this is possible, or this is what's happening, or like good, bad, ugly, whatever? Like, what has surprised you?
Okay, so in my school, we accept students all year long. It's a rolling basis for admissions. And I have a new student actually starting tomorrow. So he will attend our school April, May, and a couple of weeks of June. And I think, speaking of the professional learning curve, there's so many content areas of diving into TCKs and what is the IB and what are the entry requirements in the Netherlands that have been a learning curve I'm catching up on. But one of them is supporting students around transitions. And so thinking about, or it's been surprising, we have a very transient population in my school. And so some of the students I'm working with, this will be the only year that I'm working with them. And so the flip side of that, that has been surprising in a positive way, is our population, both students and staff, develop relationships and friendships quickly. I think my students are willing to just kind of dive in and share their story from the first 15 minutes we're sitting down together, in a way that in the US it took longer to build trust and and they kind of know this will be my counselor all 4 years of high school, and there's an assumption that they'll kind of be there those 4 years. That is not the case here. And so students are really resilient in their way of, I may have this teacher 1 year, 2 years, but I'm going to invest and make friends quickly in the people that are around me.
Isn't that just incredible, the resilience these types of international students or students that have been moving around quite a bit already, and you're like, this is my first time I've ever left home, my home country, and they're just like, this is like normal to them almost. It's a very unique thing, and it's a very special thing once you kind of get a taste of it. So can you share a little bit about, let's just change gears for just a moment. Could you share a little bit about how maybe my podcast has helped you? Because we actually recently met not too long ago. Actually, it was last month. Now it's April. We met in early March, and we met at a conference. And you shared with me some of your sentiments about my podcast and how you found me. So do you mind sharing with my audience?
Sure. I think it's related to the question of, how to prepare for the transition to go international. What does that look like? And I want to preface this by every school is different, and doing your research on different schools is so important. But for me, I received the job offer. I had 4 days to make a decision, and suddenly in February, now we're moving our whole lives. And so I immediately went to Googling everything about TCK, books, ISCA, professional organizations. I just found them Googling on my own self-research. The current administration at my current school didn't necessarily say, here are the list of pre-reading in order to have this job, because they serve people that have international school backgrounds that may be no different. So it's really kind of on you to know your skill set and know what gaps you have and fill that. So that's the way, old-fashioned Google of listening to podcasts. I got really into podcasts like many of us during the pandemic. And I was looking for podcasts related to counseling. I think I kind of shared the social emotional piece while I have my master's in social work is newer for me. And so I was looking for counseling podcasts related to social emotional issues. And this was the only one I found that served international school counselors. And I think we connected on that at ISCA. It was like just a question of, does this community exist out there? I think I knew it does, but you really have to weed through. And so I remember I was, in preparation for this conversation, reflecting back. It's like January, February, March, winter in Boston. And I just started going back and listening to every episode. And I was wanting this is the thing to be prepared on your first day on the job episode. Just learn this thing and then you'll be good. You'll be prepared. And it wasn't that. It was very much how to market your skill set and thinking about mindset and thinking about work rituals and all these other pieces that made me confident. One, not only is there a community out there that I will be able to find, but two, you spoke in such a way, or the people that you had on, I listened to Brene Brown's podcast, everything she's ever done. I've never reached out to Brene Brown on LinkedIn, but I immediately reached out to you on LinkedIn. I was like, she is who I want to be 10 years from now, in a time when, I was having that internal question for myself, which I still am every day. It's like, how long will we be in Morocco? Will it be 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And the other piece, in addition to not finding professional development content specifically for international school counselors, I wasn't finding people who have been in this work for more than 2, 3, 5 years international. And so to hear your story and see that you 10, 11 years now, was really helpful and is really inspiring.
Thank you so much for saying that. Oh my God, I'm over here blushing. Thank you. Because you know what? I know what it's like to be searching for answers. I know what it's like to not have anybody around me know what to expect with transition or moving abroad or working in an international school. It was, for me, I just wanted to help people have the experience I didn't have. So you actually gave me a really great podcast idea of what to expect on your first day. Well, we'll tell you right now in this episode, it depends on how you approach the situation. It depends on your school, it depends on your population, it depends on your administration, it depends on a lot of other variables, and there is no one size fits all answer. There's your episode right there. Agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, so there is no magic answer to that question, but what you said is like, it's valuing the skill sets that you already bring and having the confidence in knowing what you have to offer on day one. On day one, you have been hired for the job because they believe in you and they believe you can do the job to the highest level possible and the most professional level possible. And that's really what the podcast is about, is enhancing those skill sets personally and professionally. So you said it so beautifully. Now, let's kind of wrap this conversation up, because I want to ask you, could you share one piece of advice? What would you say to anybody who is planning to start their career overseas?
I would say just do it. I think the resources are out there. If you want to find a posting, if you are flexible enough of where you go in the world or when you make your jump, the community is there, the conferences are there. What I have found is so many people are asking me about search associates or their resume or to connect them with someone. And really, we get in our own way and waiting for the quote unquote right time for anything in life. I had an assumption coming in that most of the teachers or most of the staff would be younger in their careers because we're younger. That's quote unquote the right time, right? Pre-kids is my season in life. But I have not found that to be true. I am the youngest person on staff at my school, actually. And everyone here has, the other counselor in elementary school has an 8-month-old baby, and she made the leap. She has 2 younger kids, and they're doing it. And so whatever reason you have not to, the people that are here and living their experience, have found a way through that. And so get out of your own way. Just do it. That would be my advice.
Yes, I second that. Get out of your own darn way, because you never know what possibilities are out there for you. And you can make a career out of this and figure out it along the way, because nobody is going to have the roadmap for you. It's what you make out of it. It's what we tell our students at the end of the day, like going off to college. It's like what you put into the college experience is what you're going to get out of it. It's the same thing for an adult. It's what you put into the, work abroad experience is what you're going to get out of it. So it's the same kind of concept. Thank you so much, Destiny. I really, 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 really enjoyed this conversation. I don't want it to end because it's so good. But if people want to get in touch with you, how can they?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram as we're connected for all the puppy and travel adventures throughout Morocco and Europe. It's Pray, Pray 92. Or you can reach out to me directly. The counseling website for the Rabat American School has my contact information for work, but my email is dpray, Pray, @ras.ma.
Amazing. I'm going to leave all of that information down below in the show notes so you can have access to it whenever you all like. Destiny, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Did you have fun?
Yes.
Amazing. I knew I had to have you on, so thank you for coming on today. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you got something out of it. And if you are thinking about taking that leap, me and Destiny both say, do it. Just do it. You're going to not regret the decision. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining in for this week's episode, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.